real good question. Since atheists don't believe in God, what do they believe about Jesus?
They like to say he was a good man, and that's about it. They can't deny he existed. That's the cool thing.
Because historically, he's real.
There's too much proof.
Yeah.
I've met people who try to argue he didn't exist. Once they do their own study, you find there's a ton of non-Christian material, even Jewish material, don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah, that testify to Jesus' existence doing miracles. I mean, I've read them for myself, and I sit there like marveling when I'm reading it. Josephus, the great Jewish historian, writes about the miracles that Jesus did. There's Roman historians that write about the miracles Jesus did, so they can't deny that. But atheists, like they say, he's a good man, but then we have to ask them, so was Jesus a lunatic, a liar, or was he telling the truth? Yeah. So was he delusional in saying he was God, or was he a liar, or was he actually telling the truth, which meant he is God? Yeah. If you find those things out, I mean, you get that question. It's a good place to start with questions.
Oh yeah, especially when you're talking to people.
Learn that argument. It's a really simple thing to learn. Do a little quick study on that. It'll surprise you.
Yeah. I think for me too, when I encounter atheists or people of different religions, I love to point out that Jesus Christ is the only man throughout history where his words are mainly only in the Bible. And not only is he in the Bible, but it's like other religions or other beliefs want a piece of him, and they at least acknowledge him as a prophet or a good teacher. And so we're seeing atheists will say that, okay, historically he is real. Also, he was a good man. So now we're seeing, man, why is it that this one guy is transferred all over? At the very minimum, he has a good reputation. So I base my argument on that. And then what I love to do is, and I like to say that, just like Paul was alluding to, either he's a lunatic or he is who he says he is. Now, I like to stack Jesus Christ against other religious leaders or people. He's the only one that does all the miracles. He's the only one too that is born of a virgin. He's the one too the only one reported and recorded that he resurrects from the dead on the third day. Only Jesus Christ, nobody else. I mean, and again, all 300 prophecies of the Old Testament fulfilled in the New, in the person of Jesus. That puts Jesus in a category by himself. There's no one like him. Absolutely no one. So these are the things I bring to the table when somebody, especially when they're acknowledging he's a good man. Because if you're saying he's a good man, then that means you got to take his words too at face value. So that's something to consider as well. Our next question is, does atheists believe in good and bad morals?
They have a real problem with morality. Their concept of morality is not... it's... I'm trying to think of a nice way to put it. They don't have a belief in good and evil. They do have a belief that some things are good, some things are bad. There's a lot of questions you can ask about this. I would say I'm going to tell you I'm going to be putting out one of my studies on the problem of evil someday in the future, and watch for that. But it's very, very hard to get them to acknowledge something is evil and get them to acknowledge something is just good. Yeah. The person who is a cannibal, it's okay to eat people, right? Yeah. But it's okay for them. It's not necessarily okay for you. But so wait a minute. So if they want to eat you, is that okay? Yeah. And we get into these discussions. Yeah. And like it's an interesting place. To go. We gotta go with that. They have really no sense of morality. They would not even. I mean, a good atheist would admit he would probably not outlaw murder. Because it's situational ethics. Because what is the reasoning behind that? Because if there's no good, there's no evil. I mean, even robbing and things like that. That's one of the reasons why, years ago, where I used to live, when Russians moved in, we had to teach them that robbing people was wrong. Yeah. Because they had that community that they had grown in. There was no morality about that. So it was simple things like we had to teach them that when they came here. Yeah. I think too, what I love to do with atheists or people in general, sometimes I come across people who are saying, well, there is no real right or wrong.
or good or bad. And I go to the extreme points with these people, to flush it out of them, because I really do believe that is just suppressed inside of them, the truth. I believe God writes his laws in man's hearts, like Romans chapter 2 talks about. And so I bring up the question like this: if somebody killed the person you love the most in your life, is that good or bad? Is that good or bad? And so those are good questions for him.
Before I forget, one of the things you can do when you ask, when you're getting to these people who say there's no wrong, you can ask people this. If they believe there's no such thing as morals, you can say this. Do you believe this? It is always wrong for anyone to torture babies to death merely for one's personal pleasure.
Yeah.
Now, if the person says it's true, then there's an agreement that there exists universal moral standards. Oh, so now you've knocked down their whole claim that there's no universal moral standard.
Yeah.
If the person says false, if the person's agreeing with a concept that there exists morally good reasons to torture babies to death merely for personal pleasure, I'm not sure you'd want to really be around them.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the honest truth.
Exactly.
I definitely don't want your kids around them.
Yeah. And another thing is that I like to bring up is, do you think, what about if somebody raped someone, or somebody does something evil to a child? And most people I catch, they'll say, yeah, that's wrong. It's evil. It's not good. It's not right. And so right there, there's a standard being built. And so that's what I try to do, get them to see and realize there is a such thing as good and evil. And then now with that person too, I try to get them to realize too, okay, now who teaches us good and evil? And they'll say their parents or whatever. And I'll say, what about in the beginning of time? Who would have taught, and who would have, and I believe through scripture that we're hardwired that way because of God. There's a God because if not, if there's no God, then everything would happen at random all the time. What we believe in, people's thoughts, but as a core, are there's certain things worldwide that's evil or wrong. Like, for example, murder, and there's other things that are in place that is wrong to the world as a whole, even though there's some people who neglect that fact and they'll murder anyway. But as a whole in society, especially in the United States, it's not okay just for people to just go out and murder people, even in a secular society like the United States.